tonight will be a work session, so I'll remind folks that our next business meeting will be February 7th at Fullerton 4. Tour starts at 4:45 for board members. And so that'll be an interesting thing. So communications review of agenda, Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you, Chair Cotton. Listen, we talked about this a little bit last meeting, but it is January. It is Board Recognition Month. I wish we had some stock options or something we could deliver to the board, but what we can do is say thank you. Hope everybody can join me and give them a round of applause to the board for their service. We have people in this room that dedicate their time and in public service, and we are appreciative of the hours you spend on behalf of the community to make this a great place for students and our community. Just a reminder, Chair and the rest of the board, that we do have an executive session that will follow immediately after the work session tonight. Thank you.
Dear Chair, that was a reminder for the people to turn their phones off.
Oh, thank you. I love it. At this time, I'd like to ask that, and we're pleased that the Roseburg City Council President, Mr. David Moore, is here. So you have the floor.
Thank you. It says it's a hot mic. It's now. So do I have to bring it closer? Because I know our mics, we have to pretty much be right in them in order to get there. So hopefully I do this justice. I am absolutely join the mayor and everyone else in being very appreciative of your service. The short time that I've had in the council, I really appreciate your service. I don't quite understand fully what you go through, but I definitely have an appreciation for that. So I hope I do the mayor, Rich, justice. I know he wanted to be here, but couldn't. He's got 30 years of practice at this, so hopefully I can do him some justice here. So on behalf of Mayor Rich and the city of Roseburg, I would like to read this proclamation for you. Proclamation, City of Roseburg, as we get older. City of Roseburg School Board Recognition Month. Whereas the community of Roseburg relies on public education to ensure a prosperous quality of life and strong economic health of Roseburg, and whereas locally elected boards fulfill leadership roles and serve as the conduit through which teachers, parents, businesses, and communities demonstrate the care, creativity, and support that lead to student achievement. And whereas public schools nurture and train diverse student populations to the best of their ability, whatever the resources, to give students the knowledge, skills, and opportunities they need to succeed. And whereas the board members build the framework that makes it possible for education organizations to teach Oregon's children. And whereas the committed men and women who serve on the Roseburg School Board deserve recognition and thanks for their dedication to the education needs of the students of Roseburg. Now, therefore, Larry Rich, Mayor of the City of Roseburg, do hereby proclaim January 2024 to be School Board Recognition Month, and urge all citizens to join in recognizing the dedication and hard work of local school board members in preparing today's students for tomorrow's world. Dated the 24th day of January 2024, the Honorable Mayor Larry Rich. So I greatly appreciate it. Thank you. And then I believe, Chair, I will present this to you. Well, I think all board members come on. There we go. Got them. That makes sense. And I'm assuming it's probably more essential than I have a product. There you go.
Winchester, Jolene, and Roseburg. Excellent. That's awesome. No one's perfect. Yep.
What year did you graduate?
91. I'm a little bit taller.
All right. Okay. There we
Didn't know
go.
where I was at.
Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. Let me get a couple. Perfect. Thank you.
I really appreciate that. I've learned so much about what you.
That's about the year he's out of graduate.
Oh, I know, yeah. Hey, Dave, thank you, appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you again. Appreciate it. Thank you. Now I'm curious. Okay, so we have one more agenda item before we convene our work session, and Cheryl.
Yeah, you have in your board packets or at your place tonight, a memo. It is a request for approval to add a storage building at Roseburg High School. We would locate it just behind the Rose Theater with access from the storage building into the back end of the theater. And we intend to store choir risers that are used for, concerts and things, but they take up a lot of room when they're down. Acoustical shelves, which is a big tall thing that kind of bends the sound this way. And probably some like uniform storage and a few things that don't need to be climate controlled. The monies for this purchase will come from the high school success grant.
I move that we approve the purchase.
Okay, we have a motion. Need a second?
I'll second.
Second. Any discussion?
Question, when will be your start date,
We can issue a notice to proceed tomorrow
completion?
and completion. I believe we've slated for the end of May.
The reason for my question on completion is that material cost is so volatile.
Yes,
I don't want to see a time delay between approval and finish.
they are ready to go right now. They're just waiting for tonight's meeting to move forward.
Cheryl,
Yes.
do you have how big the storage unit is? What the kind of,
We are-
Square feet.
Yeah, about 600 square feet, maybe a little bit more. We can fit just about a 20 by 30 in that space. If you look at it, we're going to try to fill up and get as much storage as we can in that area.
thank you.
So all the funds are coming from the grant.
Correct.
Okay. And then I did notice in there too that they switched to a metal.
We did. The original, we sought bids from 4 different vendors. Only got one response back. I think it's because the original building, we spec'd out a nice block building to try to make it match the Rose Theater as best as possible. That came in at $210,000. That seemed like a little bit much. And so we worked with the one vendor that did return a response, did value engineering, and now we're doing a metal building.
So how different from the building will it look?
It'll look different because the Rose Theater itself is a block building.
Okay. And how visible is it?
It's from the freeway.
Okay.
Much of the equipment, the old acoustical shells were surplused and thrown away. And so we used last year's SIA grant funds to replace the risers. Those and the acoustical, they never had a separate set of risers. They moved them from the choir room, but then they got permanent ones for the choir room that can't be moved. So now we were borrowing some back from Jolene for performances. It's really more beneficial to have them, and there was insufficient for the needs. They needed like 5 sections and they only had 4. So we used last year funds, we're storing them here, both the acoustical shells and the risers.
Andrew?
Well, Steve asked most of my questions, but if we go over, how much is allotted in this grant? I mean, if there's is there wiggle room if we go over that the grant will still cover overages?
I got one last
Yeah.
thing. I do wish I could see a picture of a rendition of what it's gonna look like before we approve it, but I agree with Howard. I mean, I was gonna build a shed about 2 or 3 years ago, and it went from like a, I don't know, $300 project just for the base to like $1,200 just for the wood. So, I mean, I just kind of wanted to put that in there that it would have been nice to see what it's gonna look like if I approve, some crazy looking shed on the side of the building. I'd be a little concerned, but I trust you guys, so,
It's basically going to be a square building with a roof like this.
okay.
But it will be a metal,
I'll
it'll,
draw a picture for you.
it'll be, it will be a metal, a color close to the color of the Rose Theater.
Yeah, like I said, I trust you guys.
Okay, any further questions? Okay, let's call for the vote. All in favor? Aye, opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimous. Okay. So at this time, we're going to adjourn the regular board meeting and move into work session. And Alicia, I'll let you've got the floor. And you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah.
And we have a very experienced board, but some folks that may not know you.
Sure. Well, first of all, I want to also acknowledge School Board Recognition Month and thank you for the service that you provide to the Roseburg School District. I personally know that the joy this job brings and the challenges it brings. I was a school board member several years ago, so I've sat in your chair and have a real appreciation for all that you do on behalf of the student body. I'm Annalicia Nicholson, Superintendent of Douglas ESD. I've been in this role for about 18 months and I've been at the ESD, I believe this is my 16th year. I think most of us stop counting after a certain point, but so I've been with this agency for a very long time. I'm a native of Douglas County. I grew up in Glide, and so this is my community. The 13,000 students that we serve are our kids. And I have a strong passion and belief for their success. So I'm happy to be engaged with the Roseburg School District in that way. And I want to thank Jared for inviting me and this opportunity to share really three things. Some of you may be familiar with the ESD and some of you, we may be a newer organization. I'm just going to give a very quick introduction to our relationship with school districts. Talk about the local service plan and then dig into services that we do in partnership or in service with Roseburg. So ESD serve several functions. There's 19 of us across the state. We serve Douglas County with the exception of Reedsport. They're geographically closer to another ESD, so they sit there, but we serve all the remaining wonderful 13 school districts. It's truly an honor to do so. And part of the work we do is a collaboration with component school districts around providing additional services to students in areas around administration, special education, instruction, or school improvement, I should say, and technology. The majority of what we services we provide to school districts are in special education. And these are services usually above and beyond what a special ed teacher or a special education director, or I'll just leave it at the teacher level, would provide. So speech language pathology, occupational therapy. So a lot of my staff is actually therapists, not teachers, who are out in service of school districts. Together with the component school districts for all 13 of us, have a local service plan, which is in front of you tonight. For those of you who have seen many of these, you will notice it is condensed. So we did a little bit of a format change this year and hopefully to make it more clear. And this is really a plan to that is developed by school districts to provide services to kids. So the funding that we receive, 90%, is used to for these services, and then 10% is dollars to help us operate our agency. you can see in the top left-hand corner, that is our general fund budget. The majority of what we do is special education. And again, just services for more complex student needs than might typically be accomplished in just a classroom setting. A little bit of background on the LSP, the SOUPs work on it annually, and then our board passes a resolution, and then it comes to all of the 13 school boards to pass a resolution as well. Our services come in really two packages. Resolution services are services available to all 13 school districts. So that's what you see on page 1 and 2 in description of those services. And then we have payment to districts with the recognition that districts have needs above and beyond what might be in this plan, and they vary across the 13 districts. So those are that's how our local service plan works. And the agreement that our districts have come to. So that's pages 1 and 2. You can also see our total budget, and you can see that we do a lot of state contracts, federal contracts for additional services. The other key component of things that ESDs do is based on the needs that districts have shared with us, work with community partners to meet those needs. So a lot of behavioral health and those sorts of things that are above and beyond just academics, and that, you know, approaching the whole child are things that we work with districts to collaborate. On the LSP, pages 3 and 4. So this is really the bulk of our budget, and federal, state, and grants, and also philanthropic grants that we have to provide services. And then pages, the blue one, 5, is contracted services that we provide to school districts. Again, districts have needs beyond the 4 services that I identified, and these are ways that we have been asked to help meet those. So now I'll dig into Roseburg services, unless there's a pause for anything about just the general LSP. Okay, so now I'm talking about the green document. This is something that Jared and I have talked a lot about in the last several months, of really creating a tool that communicates what services Roseburg receives and utilizes. And so what you will see is the services, and they very much look like what you'll see on the first 2 pages of the LSP, but we've made this specific to Roseburg. The FTE that is allocated, the description of that service, and one of the things that Jared really emphasized with me is your strategic plan, and that's just a central core document of this school district and the importance of that document. And so linking our services to that document is really important. And so you'll see that column, and also talking with my staff about how they fall into the Roseburg strategic plan is also really important. And just so you know, I have about 330 staff in my organization. And then the final column, I'm going to rename in the next draft of this, is really utilization. This is the amount of the service that Roseburg is utilizing. And especially, mostly with special education, service follows the child. So if 2 students transfer or move from Sutherland and they had orthopedic needs, that service would now be met in the Roseburg School District, and vice versa. If 2 students went to Sutherland, that service follows them. So there's always going to be fluctuation, because we know we have a highly mobile population in Douglas County. The other thing I just wanted to call out, as you might see, so Roseburg student population is about 41% of the total county student population. So you're going to see some 24s and some 30s and some 33s. Roseburg is still using the largest chunk of that service. It's just my FTE is pretty small there. And so the other, if you look at 24, the other 76% is being shared across 12 other districts. So, so even though that number may not be 41%, it's still the, Roseburg is using the highest chunk of that. So this is, hopefully this helps answer the services that are being provided in the Roseburg School District. A question that I got last year is, if you go to the back of the green page, where you'll see behavioral health coordination at the top. Some of the titles of our services might look similar to the titles of these folks over here. And so what our role is we don't duplicate, we come alongside the needs. And that really is based on the district or the knowledge of the person sitting in that chair. So someone might be a literacy expert. And so they may need more support with math or science or social studies and those sorts of subjects. So behavioral health coordination. So with all of these services on this page, it's both regional and specific. So behavioral health coordination, we coordinate some higher level student meetings for kids and gather really some community expertise to get a good plan together for kids. So that's something that Melissa might reach out to our team and say, hey, we need to do a threat assessment.
Yeah, Misha, I'm not sure if we have the behavioral health coordination document
page.
there.
Is there no back to the green
I think
page?
I don't think we had it on this one here, so
Oh,
we might
you
need to make a
really
copy.
Is the
I
board,
think we'll make some copies here. Thank you.
Mr. Shercliffe has? Okay. Is everyone but Jared has it? Okay.
Just me, go ahead.
Okay.
Oh, okay, good. Thank you. Right here.
Okay. You have a friend.
Thank you.
So that's something that we would tap in as a county-wide resources, but a specific need might be, a student that you all are working and serving and you've tried everything and you just need some technical assistance and some other ideas and that sort of thing. The area where I spent 15 years of my life is in general education and instruction. And so we had regional needs. So right now the current one is literacy based on the literacy grant. And so the curriculum directors from across the county are coming together and saying, here's things we can do together and here's things that my district just may need. And so our job is to be flexible enough to meet both of those needs. And then the next page, orange and black. This is these next two documents are the same documents from our LSP. We just highlighted in orange the services that Roseburg is engaged with. It's either a service we offer or we're in partnership or it's a technical assistance that we provide. So the FTE is our entire agency. It's not specific to Roseburg. I just want to make that clear. So an example of a service is down towards the bottom on it says page 3, where it says take root parenting connection. So we have a grant, a philanthropic grant, and also now has some state funds that provides parenting education 100% free. And so historically we've offered those classes in Roseburg schools. So no cost to parents, no cost to Roseburg. And just a great opportunity to support parents with parenting, which many of us know is not an easy thing. So having that role is helpful. Places where we're in partnership, Horizons, the foster education program at Rose, and the juvenile department education program, JDEP, so where juveniles are being held in incarceration. Those are Roseburg students, but we provide the educational components to those things. So those are partnerships that we have. TA, an example of technical assistance on the back of that page, where it says Student Safety Prevention Specialist. This is a grant from ODE that is around implementing this the laws around suicide prevention, helping with planning, those sorts of things. So we have a specialist. We also offer a tremendous amount of training to support adults who are working with kids in recognizing suicidal I can't say that word. Thank you, ideation, and to support getting a plan in place. And one that's just really fun to talk about is Safe Routes to School. I'm not sure if you're aware, but that's an Oregon Department of Transportation grant that we have, and the majority of the use is in the Roseburg School District, where kids just get to learn, to ride a bike. Until this grant, I was unaware of how many kids hadn't learned how to ride a bike or hadn't had that opportunity, and bike safety so that they can navigate the city in a safe way. So that one's just kind of fun to talk about. And then the final page is contracted services. Again, highlighted in orange are the two that Roseburg contracts for: nursing, 1 FTE. So you have a total of 2 FTE nursing in this district. And then school to career, that one is all you. And that individual sits right alongside in your counseling center at Roseburg High. So those are the services, the utilization of the services being offered at Roseburg.
So this is a work session. Board directors have worked, they're gonna have many questions.
Sure.
And if we don't get the answer tonight, then we would hope that sometime down the road, we would get them. Some of the questions we may need answered before we would vote upon the plan for next year.
Okay.
Just to let you know, so I'm gonna open this up. We'll give you all the time you need. I'm gonna open this up for directors' questions.
So thank you very much for coming. So before I ask my questions, I want to let you know where I'm at on all of this, especially being a new board member. So my mission as elected by the taxpayers in the Roseburg School District is to make sure that each of our students get a great education and that we manage the budget very carefully. And I know that this is a multi-million-dollar budget. So I believe we need to look at that carefully. But as I was reading in the documents you gave us and also on your website, that we have something in common, of course, is your mission statement to assist school districts in achieving Oregon's educational goals by providing equitable, high quality, cost-effective, and locally responsive educational services at a regional level. And then also in your vision, talking about being innovative and in service to the community, hence the name Douglas Education Service District that you service. So in order for us, for me, to actually complete our mission, we need you to be very clear on what you are providing for our students and how much it is actually costing us per line. So that would be extremely helpful to know. So I'll kind of start out with one of the questions that we have is that you provided us with 3 different documents. I'm really trying to understand all this. One is specific to Roseburg School District, one is to ESD contracted services, and one specific to the local service plan. So I kind of have some questions about these documents. So why are there not specific dollar amounts and FTE listed for the services we receive in the Roseburg School District per service? And our district's service allocation is stated by percentage. So that was really threw me off. There are no dollar amounts as to which I would think would be a good accounting practice that requires knowing how much we are actually spending in these specific areas. You know, I feel like we need to have an accountability. I don't know if you have an answer, but that's just saying this is something we really need. So we also need to know how much are we charged for administering these services, you know? We kind of need to know that. There seems to be a total of 40 FTE, you may have answered this, but 40 FTE for the contracted services for the entire county. But it looks like there's 60 for our local service plan. So help me understand why there's a difference and how is that supporting our students?
Could you
So,
tell me where those numbers?
I beg your pardon? Yeah, just adding them up. But yeah, that's something we can look at later too. Did anybody else have any questions in that area?
Yeah, I'm a bit with Andrea on this. I mean, the pie chart kind of divvies up where the money's going. But I guess the concern is the detail in which each job description has an associated price tag, right? So I mean, forgive me, I'm not a financier or, you know, I don't work on Wall Street, but it just seems like the allocations are a bit hard to read, I guess. So, I mean, I'm with Andrea on the, you know, I see where the money's going department wise or category wise, for lack of a better word, but it's just a little convoluted trying to understand, you know, having a spreadsheet where you essentially can go, you know, these are the classes of, you know, people that work here. This is their job title, you know, this is, it seems it could be presented a little more so we can see where the money's going.
So the allocation is, so just let me clarify. So that's, if you look at speech language services, it's 49% of our speech language service budget. So when I look at just the raw numbers, so this is where it's helpful to have your feedback. I wasn't certain that would have a tremendous amount of meaning as far as utilization. So that's why I went with percentages to say you're getting 51% of our resources in SLPs are going to the Roseburg school district versus, you know, a raw number. So I was trying to find something that was meaningful. So it's helpful to have the feedback from you all.
I had a question on that. So, anyways, we use 49% of your total services for speech language,
Mhm.
right? So how much does that cost you? I guess is what we're trying to say. How much is your total budget for speech language services,
Sure.
of which we receive 49%?
Yeah, okay.
I mean, there's $6 million for special education needs. But then when you transfer over to, well, it's 49% of the speech services we're thinking, it doesn't really mean anything to us because there's no breakdown of where the $6 million goes. A budget allocation along with the percentage would then give us something to
Sure.
look at. That's one thing that I noticed that might help.
It'd also be helpful if we had exact FTE. A lot of them are 1/14 of the service, 1/13 of the service, you know, so that we would just have a better understanding of that.
So I look at nursing services. I'll keep it simple. We have one. What's that cost? Well, how much is that? What's the dollar amount? I mean, it's 24%, but what's the dollar amount?
No, I'm understanding that you want those line items linked, so.
Okay. We kind of look at things different, maybe. I mean, when we're looking at budgets and things, we're looking at dollars. I mean, even our personal things, I mean, I'm looking at dollars and maybe I should be looking at percentages on some things, but I think it's really important that we have that.
Sure.
Okay.
Can I, oh, sorry, can I ask two follow-up questions? When you said charge to administer, can you tell me, I'm just curious to learn more what you mean by that. If you can give context to that.
Well. Just what we need, I mean, I know you said that. Oh, thank you. You said that you have 330 ESD staff,
Mhm.
right? Are we charged? Okay, so if we say, okay, we've accepted this contract, we've entered into this, we've agreed upon these services, do we also get charged on top of that to say, okay, well, you're getting this, but we're charging you this administrative fee on top of that? Is there any of that going on?
So the services on the green page are services that we provide in your district. So they're our employees and they work in your districts. They spend more time here than they ever will in my building. The only charge of service that we have is the contracts for nursing and I don't know where the page went. There it is, it's on the back of my notes, school to career. So that is a contract between Douglas ESD and Roseburg School District, and there's an amount that we charge for that. The LSP services are services, it's dollars that come to Douglas ESD, and the school districts work together to create a plan, and then we provide those services to you all at our cost, I guess.
And I
If-
think, was that the question, kind of what is the cost? I wonder if it's the 90%, if we talk about the 90%, maybe getting a dollar amount around. Dollars come in, there's a administrative overhead cost of 90%, 10% holdback, I guess we could call it. And that's probably, is that partly what you're
Yeah.
referring to and what
Yeah,
the,
I'm still trying
yeah,
to.
yeah. To be more clear on a dollar amount.
That's why I'm here.
I think it's like we're at Costco and everything looks great and the prices look great, but we're like, how much is the membership fee? I think is kind of the overarching question, right?
And how do we get everything to a price per ounce so that we have
Well, I just want
comparisons to look at? I mean, when we're comparing apples and oranges, it's different.
I also want to know, like, what's the access fee, right? The access for your services. It seems like there's obviously there's the cost of payroll. But I'd like a breakdown a little more and deep dive into what does it cost to access your payroll, I guess.
Okay. And I do also want to acknowledge, because of all of the other state grants and contracts that we have, we take our administrative fees and we reinvest them. So it adds an additional about $1 million to our budget. And because of that, we're able to offer school districts services above and beyond if we were just receiving our state school funds. And so that is how we can do things in our ESD that you may not see around other parts of the state. So I guess I'm, again, just trying to be curious so I can better understand. What you just said, the membership fee, I think Jared and I can talk about that piece. I think I know where you're going there, but like payroll and all of that, they're our staff. So we run the payroll. So can you just give me a little more context as to where you're going there?
So I mean, I guess where we're trying to be fiscally responsible
Mhm.
in our utilization of the ESD is, I mean, I was telling Jared earlier, I would love an apples to apples comparison of, how much it would cost for us to run these services ourselves versus how much does it cost for us to use you guys to run the services.
Okay, there you go.
Keeping in mind, right? Sorry if I didn't explain it
Yeah.
right. I'm just keeping in mind that you know, but budgets get tight. I've seen some and heard some scary stories about, you know, where our money's going. And I serve on a couple different boards and, you know, it's always an issue, especially with taxpayer dollars to, you know, get everything we need out of what we've got. And if there's any excess waste, it's unacceptable because we're pulling that money from the public. So, I'm sorry that we have a lot of really hard questions. I know I'm not trying to, you know, come down on you by any means. But on the same token, I do feel on the other side of the coin, I have a responsibility to the public, to the parents, to the, you know, state as a whole. So I, you know, Jared was like, I don't know how you get an apples to apples comparison. I'm like, well, I guess I'll go apple hunting or something. I don't know. But I really would like to get a clearer picture on any excess fat that it costs that we can cut, no matter whether it's ESD or food services or whatever the situation. I think a lot of the new board members definitely have an eye on that, and I know some of the old board, or probably all the old board members do too. But we're a little more focused in on, you know, we got to understand the dollars where they're going, and we got to address and on every issue. If there's too many dollars going to this and there's not enough coming back for our kids, it's our duty, our responsibility to address it. So, you know, again, I'm sorry that, you know, we're doing a financial grilling. That's not the intent, you know.
Yep.
I think the intent is, you know, we feel the burden of the responsibility to make sure that we are getting everything we can out of every dollar that we spend.
Yeah. So thank you, because communication is 90% of the game. So understanding the language you're using and is really helpful to me. So I would say the membership fee is probably is the 90% of the dollars that would go to Roseburg. Looking at Jared to say, I would say that's what it would be. So that's about $2.8 million, and you can see that you're getting $3.4 million in service. If you, the complex needs classroom, that's another partnership that we're in. That's in the Roseburg School District. Those students come from other school districts as well. So, you know, if I took that out of the equation, you're still getting about $200,000 more in service. Again, services follow students. So Roseburg has the largest amount of students on IEPs, so that's where that piece is. Apples to apples, I just want to acknowledge that my staff is therapists, which is the majority of my staff is therapists. So our salary schedule looks different than school districts. We also, our staff pays the 6% of PERS. So our, who we compete with salary wise is not districts to districts. It's really Mercy Hospital over there. You all would have to take that into account when you're apples to apples, of that. It looks, you're paying, those, staff members is different than teachers. So, yep.
Quick question on, you just said that, you know, we pay 2.8 million. That's what we pay you.
You do not pay me. I
Pay-
receive general
pay-
funds. Yes,
Okay,
from the
general
state of
fund.
Oregon.
What-
Yep.
That's what comes out of our school district into ESD. You said
It's-
they were getting no?
It's
Oh.
a straight line. ODE, that money comes straight to ESD.
Oh,
So it's just, if I did a calculation of 41% of those dollars, it's about 2.8.
okay. And so then,
Just one thing to interject, but if we didn't service with you, that money would come directly to us, correct?
If you chose to opt
Right.
out.
okay, so, but you're saying that we're getting 3.4 worth of services. How is that measured? How is that, does that come out of like salaries? I mean, I don't understand where 3.4 comes from.
Because of all the other work we do, we have an additional about $1 million. So we are able to provide more service to Roseburg School District than we would if it was just our state general funds.
Okay, from a business standpoint, why, I mean, so you're gifting us that extra money? Is that how that works? Or I don't understand.
Our commitment
So-
is to the children of this county, and so.
Right,
yes,
no, I
yeah.
understand that, but,
It's grant funding. They
Yeah.
receive.
oh, okay, so. All right. I think I understand.
So I do have one quick question about financials and trying to understand all this. I noticed that I was looking for the 22-23 financial audit. It wasn't on the website yet. Do you know when that will be coming?
We just approved, it just was given to us last week, so I will make sure, I thought that was already, but I will double check. Thank you.
Well, and here, keep the party going. Why do you guys have an ending fund balance of $1 million? Isn't it? In these situations, isn't it normal to spend the money you have because it's gonna get replenished next year? Do you guys have, you don't have buildings or anything that I'm aware of, do you? Or do you maintain your own? What do you have the extra $1 million ending fund balance for?
Just like you all, we have an ending fund balance because life comes up. We do have 2 buildings, so we lease one, we own 1 building. And then we have several other buildings that we lease throughout the county, or we're in partnership with school districts throughout the county.
Is your funding based upon enrollment like ours
Yeah.
is? Yeah, so you guys can get a percentage next year of what you got this year just based upon, is it our enrollment or is it all 13 counties? Total?
It's ADMW for all students in this county, all students in our ESD region.
Okay.
Thank you very much for coming tonight. I want to share with you my background. I got over 55 years of accounting, dealing with numbers and et cetera. One of my favorite terms is return on investment. We have an investment. And I've heard a new acronym in the last several months, ELI5. Have you heard that?
Mm-mm.
Explain it like I'm 5.
Oh, okay.
When we have a collection of directors with different backgrounds, you need to give this explanation to us like we're 5-year-olds so we can understand it. Because I have become convinced that statistics never lie, but liars use statistics. So therefore, when you share with me data that is not definitive, not accountable, I'm going to go with a blank look going, what's going on? So therefore, we developed as a board last year, the year before, a strategic plan that is our guidance star, our North Star. It is what causes us to make economic decisions. It's what causes us to, because we care and support the kids. When we don't get a return on our investment, we have to hold ourselves accountable. Every dollar we spend, why are we spending it? Is it going to fit the plan? Is it going to enhance the plan? Or is it going to hinder the plan? So with those things in mind, when you come to us, we would like for you to come prepared so we can understand it like we're 5-year-olds. Okay? It'll help me get some better understanding of it. I know numbers. I've done financial statements for one time a few years back. I did for 16 companies in 1 week, so it doesn't matter. So thanks for your help.
I have questions. With Roseburg Public Schools accounting for approximately 41% of the students served in Dix County, how are the supports equitable distributed to each school district?
So again, our special education services follow kids. So
Yes.
where the kids are is where our staff is. And so you will see sometimes smaller school districts have higher percentage of students with autism or something like that. So you will see services are aligned to where the kids are at and the adults serving those kids. Why you see 114th or 113th is because that is a service that we in a sense is equitable to each district. Like every district has access. It's not student-based. That's really more support for the humans, the school districts, than direct service. So that's why the direct service Pieces have FTE and the, I'm not exactly sure how to name it, but it's not, it's like it's services that are, more directed at supporting, adults or like network. That's the internet that runs the world, right? So that's why I don't have FTE there, is because it's really just a breakdown across all of the districts have equitable access to those things. Some districts may use a lot of it one year and some districts it may not be a need that year, but it's there the year they need it. Does that answer your question? Okay.
So what would you say to those folks? Let's just hypothetical, say Roseburg that says, and we hear this, that Roseburg is, and you gave us some figures tonight, I appreciate that, and I knew that Roseburg is, we want kids to be successful in all of our schools countywide, but we're responsible for Roseburg School District. What do you say to those folks that say, well, we are, you know, we're spending money that could be coming to Roseburg to help out another district? Or why are we, I can't think of the word. Yeah, why are we subsidizing this program to this district where the money should stay in Roseburg? Because we hear that, and I know you hear that too.
Mhm.
So what would you say to those people that believe that's happening?
That's the power of this document, because it really shows that every district is utilizing the majority of the services. That's why they're on the plan. This, again, special education, those follow kids. So where the kids are, that's where the service is. So yeah, it's, so I lost my train of thought there for a second. Can you repeat your question? Sorry.
Well, we hear quite often.
Yeah.
And I know you hear it too, is why is Roseburg subsidizing a program at another school district where that money should be staying in Roseburg? Whatever, because you do more than just special ed type things. So what would you tell those folks? Would you tell them that's not happening? Or the superintendents are they agree that it's okay to give this district a little bit more for this program and take it away from Roseburg? That's, you hear that and I hear that. I know that.
It's a tricky question to answer because we do have additional dollars beyond our state school funds that go into services for kids. So things that you guys may have more of is, our reinvestment of those resources in your school district. It's a
Tricky for you.
consortium, right?
Exactly.
So,
So it's difficult for us too,
yeah,
because I don't know what to tell them.
Yep.
So maybe I'm one of those 5-year-olds that needs to come down, because I have to be honest, over the years, and I have a little bit of an advantage, know a little bit more about this, just
Mhm.
through, life. Sometimes I struggle with the service, and we're not here to talk so much about the overall service plan, but sometimes I struggle with that because I don't always understand it. And I'm thinking, these people are asking me these questions and I can't defend the ESD and I can't tell them, you're struggling tonight to answer the question and we're just a little board directors on a school board. And how do you expect us to answer? I don't know what to tell these people.
I don't want to speak on her behalf, but I mean, it sounds like from the slideshow that, if there's a huge need over here and a small need over here, essentially their function is they can kind of counterbalance it throughout a bigger area so that, like say in Roseburg, we have too many special needs kids to service. And then in some other area, there's none, but we have funds for them. But then we don't have enough funds for our own. So it sounds like from your slide deck that it makes it more pliable to have a bigger area to allocate funds because of wherever the kids in the demand is.
Yeah, I mean, I would say Roseburg is most of the time always using the services. Other districts may or may not have a student with a high enough level of autism to need that additional support. So yeah, the subsidized word is, I think, tricky. And I guess when I look at it, I don't see it that way because it's a consortium, and I know the 13,000 kids are all my kids, and 6,000 of them are yours. So
So I'm just gonna have them call you.
sure, that's
Okay.
my job. You don't have to answer that.
So I'm gonna get off the financial piece for just a second.
Sure.
Because I think it's really important. With in-person staff shortages for many specialists, and you say therapists,
Mhm.
what is the ESD doing to recruit in-person rather than virtual staff?
Everything we can. It's challenging based on the specialty. So I'm not sure if you're aware, we have $6.8 million federal grant in which we have employed and our 13 folks, 3 of which I think are Roseburg, are working on their masters in counseling, and they'll be licensed in that. So in this community, that's a huge shortage. And thanks to a federal grant, we will have 13 people in 3 years to provide that service to children. It's challenging because there are certain professions that are virtual is how they want to do it. We were so excited because I think this month we hired an SLP in person, our employee. Because if we can't fill them, we have to use contractors because kids need the service. And we were ecstatic. So what do? We go to the programs where students are graduating. We have some recruitment efforts around hard to fill positions, some incentives that we use to bring folks. It is our priority that folks are in person and in service to kids. So where we can, we do it, but I'll just say there are some professions that are, that came out of the pandemic and are trying to stay virtual. I think that pendulum will swing. So we're kind of in that spot, and my coordinator and my HR team do all that they can. We do have options on contractors if they're here in person. At a certain point, we can, say, hey, we got an opening. Would you like to be our employee? Those sorts of things. So it's a real struggle, as you know, in this area, professionals and getting folks to move here. And so what we have learned through the power of 2 programs now, we had a teacher program where we got a 4-year university to come here. We had 90 community members show up and say, I want to be a teacher, which is huge. They didn't have bachelor's degrees, so now UCC. So all of that is a result of that group saying, we want this. We know people in our community want these degrees. We don't have 4 institutions here. So the power of our mental health counseling program is that Bushnell is here, the classes are here, and those folks are here. And so I keep advocating with legislatures that for a cheap penny, that's our grant's 3 years, so about $2 million a year, we could be investing in getting these hard to fill positions with our own Douglas County residents. So that's a personal passion of mine, but it's a real challenge. We do the same things you do to recruit hard to fill positions. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if anyone has the magic pill, please let me know. But other than getting, what we have found is we can get contractors here and they fall in love with this place. They fall in love with your kids. Then they'll stay. We had a couple last year actually who served Roseburg, who just loved working with your kids and said, sure, I'll come be your employee.
That being said, and we know how that it is difficult to recruit and fill those positions. What is your mechanism though? Because we are, in some ways, it seems like we're kind of lowering the bar to get people. Since the people that you are hiring, a large percentage of them are going to be servicing our district. Do we have any way to be at all involved in the performance being able to judge the performance of those providers, because they are servicing our kids and, you know, they're right in our arena. Do we have any way of keeping a little bit of tab on that to know, you know, how they're doing? What if we get sent one that is, we get a lot of bad reports on or not happy, you know? How do we work with you on that?
Sure. So let me address two things. With therapists, they don't have the exceptions like teaching licenses have, like it's
Mhm.
that license or not much else. So they do have to have those credentials. This is something that this is a conversation that Jared and I have engaged in the last few months, is the feedback cycle. We are obviously the evaluators, but they work closely with your staff. And so, yes, there is a way for information to be shared around what's working and what's not working. And Jared and I think are dedicated to making that stronger. If you're not aware, we're in a strategic design process. And in a month, we're going to be mapping that out. How do we get feedback from a staff member in the Roseburg School District, a special education teacher, to someone at the ESD? How does that through line work? And I want to acknowledge the other thing I'm doing with my staff is we have a 3-month focus on difficult conversations right now. So how does my staff lean in and say, hey, how am I doing? And so we're working to support developing those skills as well. So it's two-sided and we're on pathways. I think feedback is always, no matter how good you're at, you always got to make it better. So we're working and engaged in that process. And that's important to us at the ESD.
Just that collaboration with us is just important for us to know that it's happening.
Yeah.
Okay,
Absolutely.
thank you.
So, going on the virtual versus in-person
Mhm.
staff. You said you guys go to the source of where you can find staff. Is that like career fairs at colleges, or what does that look like?
Yeah, we've done national, we've done the colleges who are graduating these folks. The larger issue here is the number of graduates coming out versus the positions to fill. So yeah, my coordinator spends, especially right now, a lot of time recruiting and talking about, you know, this wonderful area that we all live in, to bring folks here to work.
Do you have like a ballpark on what your in-person and virtual staff is, like percentage wise?
I don't, but I can get you, I'll add it to my list of.
I guess my question would be, you know, whatever it is, what do you think like the optimal for your needs? What would be optimal in-person versus virtual?
I'll be frank, that the answer to that question has changed. A year ago, 100%, right? We want everyone in person. But what we're trying to look at is the difference in the data. Is there any difference in outcomes with virtual delivery versus in-person delivery? And so we're trying to dig into that, and because it's the situation we're in. So if there is, you know, how do we lean on the profession to say, here's this? I know that when it's virtual, there's you know, an adult that has to be present. And so there's those sort of constraints that aren't well. So I don't exactly have a percentage. It would have been 100% a year ago, but because of asking curious questions with my team, and trying to get some data to answer that question, and they're looking at national studies, is there a different, you know, are the goals achieved in the same way for kids?
Across all subjects or just behavioral?
I would say SLPs is where we have probably in virtual staff. And so speech language pathologist, sorry if I use acronyms. So we're looking into that data. And I think after that, I can better answer that question. But right now I feel like I'd just be making an uninformed assumption based on my bias that in-person is better for kids.
Is there a cost difference between virtual and in-person?
Uh, uh, the,
Cause you said there needs to be an adult present.
yeah,
virtual.
sorry. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
thinking like staff to staff, because some are our staff and some are contractors. So yes, there's a cost difference there. But yeah, to the districts, they having someone present. So there is, I guess, yes, that additional piece that we're very aware of.
Okay.
And that's why we do our best to get in person, but at a certain point, IEP goals have to be met. And so that's when we have to make those more difficult decisions.
So I wanted to. This, when you and I were talking about subsidizing, because I was talking to Jared because I knew I'd heard this somewhere. You know, I'm getting older, so I forget. But there was a grant, and I wrote it down. And the ESD has like 13 behavior specialists out of this grant. Now, 2 of those come to Roseburg.
Mhm.
So that leaves 11. So when I was talking about subsidizing, I think that this is a clear thing of subsidizing the other districts. Just my opinion, you don't have to comment. But 2 out of 13, the Roseburg, the other 11 go throughout the other district. Maybe I just don't think that's subsidizing.
Now, thank you for an example. And that's something that, again, Jared and I have talked about in my team. When we go to write grants, we're going to think about that differently. With this, again, huge shortage.
Yeah.
A goal was just for every district to have someone in this role. But again, yes, as we write grants that are to benefit all, we have to think about, I know when I've written them, I think about the need of Roseburg being larger and how do we make that work? So we've discussed, I can't fix what is, but I can. What you will know about our organization is we're a growth-minded organization. And so I lean into feedback and what we can do in the future that makes sense.
Just a question on, I was looking at subservices. It's my understanding that we contract with ed staff,
Correct.
but how is, are we paying you anything for that?
Yes.
Even though we directly,
There's a third-party fee. And then also there are roles that we still play in the licensure of subs. So we still have staff who have to do,
so we go through you to contract with ed staff? How does that work?
well, we have a contract. Is Roseburg, you guys are in that? Yeah.
It's not, no, it's working. We have a direct contract with EduStaff. But then the ESD is helping subs through EduStaff get their license.
Correct.
So you're like the support role, but our contract is directly with EduStaff. And then ESD is supporting the people who are going to work for EduStaff that will be subbing for us by helping them get their licensure.
So how much are we charging?
How much are we being charged?
No, I'm not asking you, I'm just throwing this out. This is why it's gonna be really important for us to know what this stuff is,
Yeah.
what this is costing us.
Mhm.
You know, so, and we'd like to get that just as soon as we could if possible. Any? Yeah.
I do have a question, just understanding the FTE. So, like if we have a 1.0 FTE, ESD staff person allocated to the Roseburg School District, is that person spending 100% of their time at Roseburg School District? Is that what happens?
I'm gonna be fair, probably 95%, because they still have, professional learning and in-service, and it's probably like 98% of their time is in Roseburg School District.
Okay.
They, like the nurse does have a desk at our office, but our itinerant staff are to be out. They are here. My motto is if you are here, you are not there. So,
That's good.
so I'm just, in fairness, yes, there are things that as an employer, we need,
Well,
but we
thank
try to do that when it's not student contact.
Thank you for your transparency. So the cost of an FTE, help me to understand
Mhm.
this, is that just salary and benefits or are travel supplies included? You know, what's the your complexity of whatever?
Same as you, yep. So FTE, salary benefits, travel, there, like SLPs have a lot of software and technology that they use. So the budget allocation includes all of those pieces because
Okay.
that's what it takes to run the show.
Great. Great, thank you.
So if you're going to give us more of a line item on that, that will include all of those things.
It's the budget, yep.
Okay.
It's your utilization of the budget. So,
Okay.
I don't know why I said that slow.
Oh, we should have bought the nice ones where it came on automatic. But anyways, just kidding. Final questions? I got one.
So what's a typical caseload for an ESD contracted support staff? Like, let's say an autism spectrum disorder consultant.
For our staff, ASD, I think is around 50. That is a population that is growing. And so our caseloads are quite high, because of we also have the early intervention, early childhood education, just so you know, we're exiting, about 10 kids that are 5-year-olds into kindergarten across the county, which is a huge, huge, huge increase. SLPs, I think average is about 63 kids.
So each contracted person has like 63 kids, or just the autism specialist. I mean, and the speech therapist has 63 also.
So I would say autism, I think, is in the 50-ish range.
Okay.
Our SLPs are average 63. Some could have more, some could have less. The other thing you have to think about is workload. So some children who are autistic have greater need than other children. Some kids with communication disorders who are nonverbal, requires more service than a kid who might just have an articulation issue. And so workload really matters too. So you may see folks with lower caseloads, but they probably have children who need more time. So
Yeah.
we have to take that into account.
That's what I'm hoping for, is
Yeah.
lower workload is not higher. So I'm not gonna reverse it on you.
Yeah, well, and my budget's just like yours. It comes
Dr.
from the state,
Sherwood,
so-
can I just mention something real quick? I think what's curious, I mean, it's a great question, but there's kind of few ways to answer this question. We have, I think, a 1.0 FTE that has 3 people.
Mhm.
And so I think if you would ask the question about caseload for FTE, I think we're about 130 or so, I think the number is probably. So that's for one FTE. So this is what's kind of unique about this is there's 3 effectively 0.33 positions. So I think that just to have clarity around that, it's not 50 per FTE.
Okay.
It's about 130, I think the numbers right now for one FTE, just because the FTE is broken up.
And these are, is there a difference between contracted support staff and regular support staff, people that work for you, or contracted that's outside of your organization, or is everybody in your organization?
We have both because of hard to fill positions. So, yeah, we have both.
And is there a ratio of that you guys try and achieve? Do you want 100% of the people to be in-house? And you
Absolutely.
or you're contracting out what you can't get on your own?
Correct.
So just for my own personal knowledge here on your autism consultants, how
Mhm.
many of them are in-house versus how many of them are consulted and on Zoom?
Uh,
Assuming everybody who's consulted is on Zoom.
No.
Not necessarily.
No,
Okay.
all the autism folks are our employees and in person.
All right.
It's our SLPs,
Okay.
and our OTs, PTs, where we will find contracted employees. OTs, PTs, all in person. SLPs is where we would have more, where we have folks in virtual land.
Gotcha.
you have anything you'd like to add?
No, just thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate, I hope you appreciate my curious questions to better understand what you are asking. I believe things go through iterations so we can get the best product. And again, I'm a very growth-minded person, and so something that makes sense is my goal. So I appreciate that. If I have clarifying questions, Jared and I check in. So I'll check in with him and, yeah, appreciate it.
We're glad that you came and I hope that you're glad that you came because it helped us. too.
No.
Okay, thank you. Yeah,
I do have something. I was just wondering, Jared, would you, I would appreciate, and I think the rest of the board would appreciate if you could check in with your staff and just see, get their weigh in on how things are going. And if we could have a report on that, that would be really good. Thank you.
You want that like in the typical fashion of return on investment type framework we normally do?
Yes.
Okay.
okay, we are going to adjourn the work session, take about a 10-minute break, and then we're going to go into executive session pursuant to ORS 192-660-2D to conduct deliberations with persons designated by the governing body to carry on labor negotiations. Okay. So work session adjourned.